Collective and individual agreements are two ways to establish employment terms and conditions in Australia. Both types of agreements have their advantages and limitations, and the choice between them depends on factors such as the organizational structure, industry norms, labor relations environment, and individual preferences of employers and employees. Here's a breakdown of the key differences. Collective agreements are also known as collective bargaining agreements or enterprise agreements, are negotiated agreements between employers or employer associations and labor unions or employee representatives. These agreements establish terms and conditions of employment for a group or collective of employees. For example, set out minimum wages, working hours, leave entitlements, training, dispute resolution procedures, and other workplace conditions for the entire bargaining unit. Collective agreements typically cover a group of employees who are represented by a labor union or employee association. They may apply to all employees within a particular workplace, industry, or sector, or they may cover specific categories of employees based on job classifications, skills, or other factors. The benefits of collective agreements include standardized benefits, as fairness and consistency for all employees covered by the agreement. Collective bargaining power, as unions can negotiate for better benefits than what individual employees might achieve on their own. Dispute resolution framework, as there are clear procedures for resolving workplace disagreements. The drawbacks of collective agreements include less flexibility, as individual needs or preferences might not be considered as easily compared to an individual contract. Reliance on union representation, as employees are reliant on the union's negotiation skills and priorities. May not apply to all workplaces, as not all workplaces have unions or are covered by collective agreements. Whereas individual agreements, also known as individual employment contracts or employment agreements, are contracts between individual employees and their employers. These agreements establish terms and conditions of employment specific to each individual employee. Individual agreements apply to a single employee and govern the employment relationship between that employee and their employer, and outlines the specific terms and conditions of employment for that particular employee, including wage rate, duties, leave entitlements, clauses, benefits, job duties, working hours, termination procedures, and other employment conditions. In negotiating individual agreements, employees typically represent themselves without the involvement of labor unions or employee representatives. Employers may have greater flexibility in setting terms and conditions of employment under individual agreements, subject to legal requirements and employee consent. Individual agreements are negotiated directly between the employer and the individual employee. Negotiations may involve discussions on salary, benefits, job responsibilities, and other terms of employment. However, individual employees may have less bargaining power compared to collective bargaining. The benefits of individual agreements include flexibility, as individual agreements can be tailored to the specific needs and circumstances of the employee and the employer. Potential for higher pay, as high-performing employees might be able to negotiate better pay rates or benefits compared to a collective agreement's baseline. Direct relationship with employer, as individual agreements provides a clear line of communication for negotiation and resolving issues. The drawbacks of individual agreements include weaker bargaining position, as individual employees may have less leverage compared to a union negotiating on behalf of a group. Risk of unfair terms, as employees need to be aware of their rights and ensure the contract upholds minimum standards set by the NES or relevant award. Limited dispute resolution options, as individual agreements may rely on Fair Work Commission or legal action for resolving disputes. In summary, collective agreements govern the terms and conditions of employment for groups of employees through collective bargaining, while individual agreements establish terms specific to each individual employee through direct negotiation between the employer and the employee.